Hello and welcome to Level 4 Health and Social Care Unit 404 Reflective Practice. And we're looking at week 3 now, and we're going to address personal development plans. Okay, the objectives that we're going to cover are 2.1, demonstrate an understanding of the use of personal development plans. 2.2, discuss how personal development plans are used in health and social care practice. 3.1, develop a personal development plan. So you're going to create your own plan. And 3.2, within that plan, you need to identify what your aims are, how you're going to achieve them, what success criteria you're looking for, and how you're going to monitor it if it's achieved. Okay, so those are the bits that will need to be contained into your plan. 2.1, I will assess from when you hand in your plan. So you don't need to actually write anything specific for demonstrating the use of personal development plans. I'll just assess that one when you've created your own plan. That way you will have demonstrated to me that you understand how to use it. But you will have to write about 2.2. Okay, so let's move on. So what is a personal development plan? Some of you may have come across them already. Some of you may have come across them in other work. It's not just used in health and social care. They're used in all sorts of occupations. It's an action plan, basically, that helps you get organised, helps you identify your learning and development needs, and the aim is to sort of do your job better or help you progress in your career, really. The thing about the personal development plan, it also tracks your progress. So you can actually look back on it and see, what you've done so far. And you can use it to demonstrate to other people. It can be quite useful to take to an interview as well to show, this is the progress I've made. These are the steps I've taken. As a first step, most of you who are going into working in care may be required by your employer to complete the Level 3 Health and Social Care Diploma, and that might be part of your plan. Now, some of the people who I'm talking to here, I know will have already done that, and that some of you have moved on to your Level 4, but your Level 4 will also be part of your personal development plan, and then at any other levels you're planning to do after that. And as you continue to work in health and social care, you will always need to keep developing. It's a requirement really of the role. And this can involve further sort of formal training. It could be specialized courses about certain areas, or you might have started to work in a specialist unit and you might want to do something like that, or you might just develop a particular interest and want to sort of develop extra skills in an area. You might also be looking at going on to team leadership and wanting to develop supervisory skills. So there's a whole set of skills that will go with that for leadership and management as well. Your employer will know what to expect from you and will also help you to set the targets to make sure that you do the learning that they need to help you fulfill their job role. So they will have a hand in creating the PDP with you. But also, it's very important for you to sort of stand up and say the things that you really want to do as well, because not all staff members want to do the same things. So employers aren't always looking for a set PDP. They might do if they want level 3s and 4s done, yes, fine. But apart from that, it will start to become quite personal, really, to you. Majority of PDPs will cover a 12-month period, and they will be updated and renewed each year, generally at appraisal time. So in order to really put your plan together, you've got to ask yourself some questions firsthand. So you need to take a little bit of time to think some things through. I've got a little activity for you to do towards the end of the slides for you to maybe start to think about some of these ideas. So first of all, you need to think, what do I want to achieve? And that's like, what do I want to get out of my job? What do I want to give to my job in a way, really? One of the standard skills and knowledge that I absolutely need to do, because you can't just do things that you feel like doing. You also need to know where your gaps in knowledge is, and that's sometimes where you can work with your supervisor or your manager to find out and identify the gaps in your knowledge. Now, this is not a criticism. Nobody comes to work in a new place fully formed in that sense. And there's always sort of bits of knowledge that they'd like you to have that you might not have at the moment. So you don't need to um, feel bad about that, really. That's really what personal development is all about. But then you need to sort of think about a bit wider. What are my goals and ambitions? Do I want to be a supervisor? Do I want to be a home manager in time? Or do I want to be a specialist practitioner? And that's when you start looking at how do you want your plan to take you. And then reflect on what you're doing. You've done something. You've spent some time looking at reflection in previous weeks. Think about, am I making the right choices to get me there? Do I have to change anything? Do I have to review my plan? Plans are never set in stone. Plans can change as your life changes as well. So don't feel that because you've created a plan, you can't change it. If you think things are changing through the year, before your appraisal, then you might want to sit down, have a chat with your manager and saying, well, this is, I was interested in going in this direction, but actually having some experience of it, I'm not sure if it's for me. So I might like to review my plan. And you can review your plan earlier. So this plan really feeds into the supervision and appraisal process, which we looked at in our last set of slides. And I'm just going to remind you that whenever you're carrying out your work activities, you will be supervised. And supervision in health and social care has got more than one meaning, really. It usually means working under supervision. That means you're working within the sight of a more experienced worker. It might not necessarily be a manager, it could be a team leader, it could be shift leader, however the setup is in your place. They're usually somebody more experienced who just keeps an eye on what you're doing. Supervision sessions are pre-arranged meetings between you and your manager or your designated supervisor, and that will be the same person all the time in order to discuss your performance and development. Now, we talked about that a little bit at length in our last set of slides, so I'm just refreshing you here, really. And these sessions are just regular opportunities to talk through your work, your role, and about the individuals you provide care for. It could be individual or it could be a group session. It really depends how your organisation is set up. Okay, but the most important thing is that they take place regularly and notes are kept. So they're very important to any job, so concerns can be addressed. And the notes are the most important thing. Now, coming towards the end of the year, you'll move into something called the appraisal time, when you really sort of round up everything you've been talking about for the year and have a sort of overall annual appraisal. It might be much more in depth because in your supervisions, you might be talking about sort of individual cases and things like that. Your appraisal won't be doing that. It will just be an overall review of your performance, taking into account all the sort of changes and developments you've made through the year. So the PDP will lie alongside whatever appraisal document that they use, and then you will feed into it and you'll pick up information from that. And it will also help you prepare. Once you've had your first appraisal, it's a lot easier for you to prepare your PDP for the next year, because your appraisal will let you know sort of areas where you need to develop as well. Okay, so what you'll probably be looking at is outcomes and competencies, really. Where are your competencies good, where are their weaknesses? Okay. So for making your plan, the first thing you have to do is create your objectives. And it's really, really not that different from when you put together a care plan. Those of you who've already done your level 3, we talked about person-centered care. You've got an idea of how to put a care plan together. And really, creating your personal development plan is really not a lot different from creating a care plan. The objectives are the things that you want to achieve, and they need to be SMART. Now remember the logo SMART, the mnemonic, and that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based, as my graphic tells you here. Specific, they need to be clear and focused, not too wide and waffly. They need to be measurable. You cannot have something in a plan that cannot be measured. So you've got to have some form of measurement for it. Even if it's done by a certain time, or 20% of it is done by a certain time. Say you're doing your level 4, I need to have completed 50% of my level 4 by January, something like that. Achievable, there's no point setting an objective that you don't know how to do and you don't have the skills to do. That means the objective is too wide, too far away. You need to have steps. It doesn't mean to say you can't have a long-term goal that you don't know how to do and don't have the skills to do yet. But the objectives that you create on the way to that goal, remember, the objectives are the stepping stones. Each one of them needs to be achievable. They need to be relevant. They need to be relevant to your work and the job that you do. You might want to do a course in country dancing, which is lovely, but that I'm not interested in that if I was your manager. Okay, that's just a personal goal for you. It wouldn't be part of your development plan unless you were going to do a dance group for the group of people. Then it might be. Okay, so it needs to be relevant to the work that you're doing, and it needs to be time based. Everything needs to have a completion time to it. Again, the same as when you do your care planning. When is it going to be reviewed? Okay, so time based, you need to set your review dates. So once you've set these objectives, then you can break them down into action points. So you might have 2 or 3 action points for each objective. Okay, depending on how complex what you're planning to do is. Same as care planning, in exactly the same way. So let's have a look at the steps. So you agree of the objectives, as I said. So I've got some example here for you. Let's work through this example. So my example here for step 1 in agreeing an objective is to be able to write and review care plans with the individuals who need care and support in my workplace. So to be able to have the skills and the ability to write and review some care plans. Okay, so step 2, let's think about the activities and timescales to meet those objectives. So my example here is read the instructions, look at the care planning process in my workplace. So remember, each home has its own different types of policies. They may differ slightly. You do need to learn the theory of it, of course, but you also need to learn the process as it happens in the place that you're working at the moment. Another activity, next stop activity after that, is to discuss it and ask questions of a more experienced worker so that you make sure that you've got it clear, you've got the process clear, you know what you're doing. Then a third activity would be to work with my manager to choose 3 people with care plans and get their permission to discuss the care plans with them. Okay, so remember, you can't do anything with consent, especially if you've not been already the identified key worker. Then arrange with my manager how and when I'm going to report back and discuss any questions or learning points. Might not be your manager, it might be a supervisor, it might be a more senior member that your manager might have allocated to do this piece of work with you. Okay, then you plan your timescales look back at those activities. You've got about 4 activities listed there. Can you achieve one this week? Or will you achieve one each week? If so, identify which one's going to be done which week, and then you can identify how many weeks it's going to take to fulfill that one objective. Step 3 is actually carrying it out. Okay, so do the agreed activities, meet the planned timescale. If you don't meet the planned timescale, you need to put down in your plan, identify, what happened. Did you have to change something? Why? And then step 4, you review them and let's have a look at the outcome. And in this case of examples, it'll be discussed with my manager the 3 care plans that you've been looking at, that you've sort of suggested, and the comments of the people who are supported by them, that they're happy with them, or no, they don't like them, or they'd like you to change it a bit. And then if the manager is happy and if you've met the needs of the service users, then you can update the care plans, maybe in supervision with the manager or the supervisor, and then you can do some reflection on what you've learned from the process. Okay, so that's a real breakdown of some of the activities you do in a plan. Okay, but for the written part of the plan, you're just identifying those timescales. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea. Some things may be more detailed than that, some things may be less detailed than that. It really depends what you're doing. So learning and development, really, this is all part, the PDP is all part of your learning and development. There is an expectation that people in health and social care carry out learning and development, and your employer may provide some other internal training. There'll definitely be some form of induction to start with, and there may be some other courses like health and safety courses, fire safety, those sorts of things that most organisations expect you to do as well. Once you've completed most of what they call the mandatory courses, there may be some other things they might want to go. It might be looking at a certain style of care planning. It might be looking at communication skills, all sorts of things, really. And you need to ask your manager about this. Like, normally in the care home, there will be some sort of policies showing you the types of learning and development that are accessible. But you also can look wider than just inside your own organisation as well. Places like CQC, Social Care Institute for Excellence, Skills for Care are all great resources to give you wider learning and development opportunities. Some of it formal, some of it informal, so you can have a look at it. But as websites on their own, they're all very, very helpful. You can certainly look up all sorts of skill issues on their websites. I've given you the link there to CQC, to SKI, Skills for Care and Skills for Health. They are the 4 most commonly used ones by care staff. And they give you tons of information. If you're working with elderly people, say with dementia, Dementia UK are great. Alzheimer's Society are wonderful. They have so much information. So you can get your information from other places as well. You can find YouTube links, all sorts of things, really. So there are different ways of learning as well. So you can consider this as part of your personal development when you're talking about your activities and your objectives and your success criteria. Make sure you note about how you're going to be learning these things. Okay. And really what we call that now is, because we use all sorts of different opportunities to learn, we call that blended learning. It's not all just book learning. There are different methods that we use. You can use online resources, like I said, looking up specific websites, YouTube, video clips. Everybody uses and TikTok now, those sorts of things. These all really develop your knowledge and understanding. Social media forums such as Twitter and other social media is quite good for shared ideas, but do be very careful. Check with your ways of working, because we do know that sometimes people put stuff on social media and they don't know what they're on about, really. So if you've read something on social media and it interests you, find out about it if you can. Maybe look at some of the more respected websites. And if you're not sure, maybe talk to the people in your placement and say, look, I read this, does this make sense, or is this someone being a bit crazy on Twitter? So, and when you are chatting to people on Twitter, you might want to talk about something that happens in your home. Do remember confidentiality. Do be very careful that you don't breach confidentiality about a service user or about your care home that you work at, really. Other sort of learning, which is more day to day on the job, will be known as structured learning, which is often work shadowing, observation, where you work alongside an experienced worker, and that could be maybe learning a new technical skill, learning an aseptic technique, learning how to do a dressing, learning how to give medication properly, that sort of thing. And you would do that with a more skilled member of staff until they feel you're good enough to do it on your own. Undertaking e-learning, well, you're all very experienced at that because you're doing this course. So this is computer-based learning, and sort of more formal courses that go that you're probably all very aware of. Those of you who are doing this course, you're already looking at your level 4, so you've probably done your level 3. So you've already done some formal courses. Active learning involves you reading, writing, describing, discussing, and reflecting on information. And this is something that you might do on away days, training workshops, small group project workshops, where you're learning from each other. And that could be, or just your weekly team meetings, and give you the opportunity to explore new ideas and get fresh ideas just by sharing that. Or if you do group supervision, you've got a bit of an active learning going on there where you're interacting with people. And taking that time to discuss your ideas with other people can really develop your self-confidence, especially if you get people saying, yeah, it's a great idea, we all like to do that. And that can help you sort of turn the theory that you might have read into practice by discussing it with the rest of the team and seeing how you can do that. Finally, there's also personal reflection, which is another way of learning. We've looked at reflection a couple of weeks ago, so you should be familiar with that. But if you're a bit unsure, go back and have a think about the reflective process. Receiving feedback. You need helpful feedback when you join a new workplace, and you're always learning new skills. So when you learn those new skills, you do need feedback. As you progress for your induction, you should get regular feedback from your manager or your assessor or a supervisor or team leader or just one of the seniors who you might be working regularly with. And this should help you to develop your skills, provide clarity, give you space to ask questions, check things out. And the aim is to make sure that you're working at the correct standard that is required by that organization. If you don't receive any feedback, it can lead to a false assessment of your abilities, be it a good false assessment or a bad false assessment. And it could also leave you not having, you can either have too much confidence in what you can do or not enough confidence. So that's quite important as well. So feedback needs to be pure and honest and constructive, really. Health and social care work does involve using the knowledge and skills that you've learnt together with people, and it's an ongoing learning process, so it never really goes away. And good to manage difficult situations, you need to build up the confidence that only constructive feedback can give you. And even sometimes, if it might feel a bit hard when you think you've done something quite well and you've been told that maybe you didn't do it as well as you could, as long as that feedback's constructive, you should end up feeling fairly positive. It's really essential part of learning and development. It does give you an awareness of your strengths as well. Now, sometimes when you ask the question, what are my areas for improvement, we can all give a list of things we're not very good at. sometimes we struggle to give a list of things that we are good at. But when you're getting regular feedback, you're usually able to do that better, which is actually good for your own ego and confidence as well. Feedback can be formal and informal, as we know. Formal feedback is usually done in writing, probably part of an assessment or an appraisal, or on some sort of comment sheet where you've been asked to comment, or on your PDP or your annual appraisal, or just in your regular supervision. It's given verbally in supervision sessions, but it must also be written down in notes as well. Okay, so it's an absolute must to have your supervision sessions written down. Informal feedback is a bit day-to-day comments, a bit of discussion with work colleagues, a bit of discussion with managers and seniors, and discussion with the individuals that you provide care and support for. Sometimes a carer might say, or a service user might say, "Oh, yeah, I like the way you did that. Oh, thank you for doing it that way." And that's some good informal feedback. And just comments around the building, we all give each other a bit of feedback now and then. Sometimes we don't even notice that we're doing it, but we do. Here's a little activity for you just to get your head around thinking about your personal development plan. I've put a little table there for you with a development activity, and I'd like you to, you can make your own notes really, complete the table, describe how the different development activities have helped you to improve your knowledge, skills, and understanding. So I just want you to think of a learning activity that you've undertaken, do a little description of it, how it's helped you to improve your knowledge, how it's helped to improve your skill, how it's helped to improve your understanding. You can do one, you can do a couple if you want, really. Okay. So, one is a learning activity, two is reflecting on a situation, a little bit of reflection, and three is feedback you might have received from others. Okay. And it's really just to get your head into the right compartments for when you write up your PDP, because you'll be looking for some of those feedback ideas. So if you know how it helped to improve your knowledge, you'll be able to write that in the PDP. I want to do this because it improves my knowledge in this way. Okay. So this is just a little exercise for you to sort of get your head in the right place. So do take some time to do that in your private study time. It will be very useful for you. Okay, continuing your learning. Generally known in the business as CPD, you will have heard people say that. As a health and social care worker, you've got to carry out further training and/or qualifications. Continual professional development is a record of your learning, development, and achievement. And it is required for those of you, if you're working in the UK and you join HCPC, then you will have to produce CPD, whether you're an unqualified worker or whether you're a qualified worker, like as a nurse, as a psychotherapist, as a physiotherapist. They're all expected to do CPD, and we all have to create a folder of our learning, development, and achievement. It's something that should be accessible. Some people do it electronically now. Some people just keep it in a document. I've got one that's lots of hard copies because I keep all the certificates of all the different bits of training. You can actually scan all that as well if you want to, but it's perfectly acceptable to be in a hard folder. It's just to make sure it's something that you don't want to lose, really. And very often, people might well ask you to bring it to job interviews as well, which is why I quite like my hard copy. If you've kept an electronic one, you can always send it ahead of time for them to have a little look at it. But it is really important to keep it in one way or another. There are some websites that professional organisation sites that actually have spaces where you can complete all of your CPD online, and then you can just give someone a link to it. It's really up to you. There's no right or wrong way. So your PDP will help you focus on your areas for learning and development. The continual learning is needed by all workers, as I said, because in health and social care, changes do happen very regularly as research develops different ideas, different approaches. So that in that area, you need to keep abreast of changes. We have changes in legislation all the time as well. But also, if you, as you want to develop your skills, you'll be changing your approach to things. So your CPD file will become very valuable, and it's a wonderful way of looking back at things to think, you know, how what your journey has been like as well. But either way, if you're working in this field, be sure that you need to have it. So it's not a sort of luxury item. It's something you do have to create. So once maybe you've finished your level 4, you can go on. I mean, start putting things together. You know, once you've got the hang of it, start putting a CPD folder together. I've added some little videos for you to find out a little bit more about them. Okay, so as I said, in extra reading, you'll see there are some additional notes on PDPs for you to have a look at to help you. There's also a PDP template you can use if you want. You can use my template. If you don't like it, you can find another one as long as it meets the requirements of 3.2, where you identify what your aims are, what you're going to achieve, what the success criteria is, and how you monitor it. Okay, as long as you can cover that in your template, it doesn't really matter. But there is a template there for you, and there's a template there's an example partly filled in just to give you an idea for someone who's a care worker. I've also added a couple of links from YouTube for videos about CPD that I'd like you to watch as well. And finally, I just suggest that you sort of make a start on your PDP now, because you'll be working into a template. So start getting your ideas together. It will have to be handed in as part of the completed assignment by the hand-in date, which I don't think the college has set yet anyway. But because you'll be spending time at the end worrying about the written parts of your assignment, make a start on putting your personal development plan together now. And you do know that you can contact me on WhatsApp or through email if you just want to ask any more questions about the plan. Okay, there's lots of stuff you can find on Google as well, but this extra reading is some additional notes on what needs to be included. Okay, so that's all there is on PDPs. Good luck with that. Start having a look at it now, and I will see you for the final week of Unit 404 next week. Thank you and goodbye.